Chapter 7. Hope and Despair. Just before dawn, the distant toll of a bell rang out, echoing through the courtyard of Bastogne, its heavy resonance shattering the quiet of the early morning. It was a sound that filled the hearts of the townsfolk with dread, a grim warning that something was terribly amiss. Rassiquin stood frozen, the color draining from their face as they bolted to the door, the air thick with tension. Outside, they exchanged a quick, anxious nod with each other, then each went their separate way, propelled by instinct and duty. In the inner sanctum of the barracks, Ruffier entered just as the chaos began to unfurl. He was taken aback by the sight that greeted him. So many soldiers gathered in rigid formation, a sea of armor and anxious faces, all waiting for orders. The muted sounds of shuffling feet and hushed whispers swirled around him, mixing with the distant echo of dread. A soldier, disheveled and panting, raced past him, heading straight towards the officers' cluster. As he drew breath, Reynaud, a seasoned leader known for his fierce gaze and unyielding resolve, stepped forward. "What's the situation?" he demanded, his voice a sharp blade in the mounting panic. "Sir," the soldier gasped, each word spilling from his lips in a desperate rush. "The castle gates are flooded with refugees. Many are injured and scared, and they say." "They said what, soldier?" Reynaud's impatience cut through the atmosphere like a knife. "Beastmen, sir. They said they were attacked by beastmen." A collective gasp rippled through the assembled officers. The word beastmen echoed ominously, its weight pressing down on every soul in the courtyard. Panic flared in their eyes as grim realizations took root. Reynaud's voice rose firm and decisive. "Form a perimeter around the area, help the refugees and see if there's any spy among them. Berenguer, I want you to make scouting parties." His commands ignited a wildfire of action among the soldiers, each knowing their place and purpose in the face of this situation. As the commotion unfolded, Rassiquin found themselves amid the chaos of the refugees. The air thickened with sorrow, families broken, children wailing for their mothers, the desperate clamor cutting through the early morning light. Rassiquin, along with a trio of priests, was determined to offer comfort, whispering prayers for the fallen and for those enduring unbearable pain. Among the children, Sigrid knelt, her heart heavy with frustration as she tried to coax one traumatized girl to eat. "Please, just a little bite," she urged, but the child merely shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks as the world around her faded away into a blur of horror. From behind Sigrid, Ruffier watched the scene unfold, his chest tightening at the sight. He couldn't escape the thought, what if this misery were to happen to my son should he lived instead of myself? Mustering his resolve, Ruffier stepped forward. He knelt, clapping his hands to capture the children's attention. "Listen," he called out, but as he looked into their despairing eyes, he felt an urge to shake some sense into them. For a fleeting moment, the urge twisted into something reckless. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, he slapped a nearby child on the face. "Do I have your attention now?" Ruffier asked, forcing the atmosphere to shift, though a few nearby refugees began moving toward him in anger. Walter and Goderoy positioned themselves protectively before Ruffier, imploring the worried people to let him speak. The moment hung in the air, heavy with tension. Ruffier cleared his throat, locking eyes with the children. "I know this is hard," he began, his voice steadying. "Everything has been taken from you, and the same happened to me a while ago. But we are going to do everything we can to find your families." A boy with wild, fearful eyes shouted, "Lies. Those monsters are too fast, too strong. I saw one of them kill 3 men with one swing of his weapon." Ruffier held his finger in front of the children's mouth, silencing the uproar. "Yes, many monsters are strong. That's why we must learn everything we can to fight back." To emphasize his point, he took a piece of bread from a nearby bowl and held it out to the child. "First, you need to eat this." He placed it gently in the boy's hesitant hands. "Next," he continued, pointing to his head, "you need to train this. And finally," he pointed to his heart, "you need the determination to overcome dangers, even when fear threatens to swallow you whole." Some of the kids exchanged glances. "Look around you," Rufia urged, drawing in a deep breath. "You have each other. You can find strength together." He placed their hands together in a circle. "If you do that, maybe one day you'll be strong enough to prevent this from happening again. Maybe you'll be the ones helping those in need." The air around the children shifted as a sense of resolve blossomed in the small circle. New determination sparked in their eyes, banishing a flicker of fear. Though the specter of beastmen loomed close, hope began to weave through the hearts of the children, unfurling fragile yet fierce, like dawn breaking the darkest night. The air, once thick with despair, now buzzed with a newfound lightness. Rufia, his spirit buoyed by the warmth of the children's gratitude, stood tall while applause of the refugees surrounded him. Those small arms that wrapped around him felt like lifelines in a sea of turmoil. As the gathered crowd dispersed, Rufia decided to take a breather, but as he was reaching the exit he found himself accompanied by his friends, Walter, Godoroy and Sigrid. "You can't expect to go resting while the rest us are still working hard, right?" said Walter while putting his arm over Rufia's shoulder. However, not far from where they stood came the voice of Berenguer, echoing from the edge of the gathering. The man stood tall with a confident demeanor, his deep-set eyes gleaming with a blend of pride and resolve. "Good work. You and your friends got a place in my scouting party. Report to the city gates within 2 hours." The group acknowledged the commander order with a nod. Seeing that time was short, each of them decided to go their own way to prepare. Rufia made way to his modest quarters. It was there that he picked up his own sword, a work of his own. He started by examining the hilt that promised strength and resilience, unsheathed the sword with reverence, its steel glinting with determined light. He then entered a combat position showing his martial prowess, honed by the months of training he endured since joining the army. But even as he immersed himself in the rhythm of practice, a heaviness pressed upon his heart, a reminder of the uncertainty lurked. Seeking clarity, Rufia decided to seek solace in the chapel, a refuge lit with flickering candles and fragrant with the scents of sacred herbs. He knelt in a corner, allowing his thoughts to drift into prayer, seeking guidance from the gods. Moments turned into minutes, and just as Rufia felt himself drifting into a deeper state of meditation, a voice sliced through his concentration, startling him. "I heard what you did in the refugee encampment," the voice said, resonating with an unexpected familiarity. "I'm a terrible judge of character, but it seems I wasn't wrong about you." Rufia turned, his surprise blooming into recognition as his eyes fell upon the man seated beside him. Tall and imposing, clad in finery that spoke of nobility, the man exuded an aura that was both enchanting and unsettling. It was not dread, but something alluring, a storm cloaked in calm. Rufia's heart raced as he recalled the encounter from that notorious night. "It's you, the man that spoke to me during that night," Rufia breathed, recalling the dragon signet that adorned the noble's attire. "Ah, you didn't forget about me," the noble replied, his tone a mix of amusement and affection. There was a warmth in his smile, even as an intensity pulsed just beneath the surface. Suddenly overwhelmed by sudden realization and the weight of honor and reverence, Rufia dropped to his knees, humility dawning upon him. This lowly peasant greets and thanks the advice given by the knight, Duke of Bastogne, Lord Bohemond the Beast Slayer. "Rise, Rufia," said Bohemond with calm authority. "It is only right for the lord of a land to help guide his people." His voice held the warmth of fellowship, and Rufia felt a flicker of connection with the man who carried both a title and a weight upon his shoulders. As Bohemond turned to leave, the atmosphere shifted. The spacious chapel seemed to hold its breath. His voice echoed softly back to Rufia, "Be careful, there's more afoot than what we know." Those words settled upon Rufia like a shadow, and for a moment, the flickering candlelight dimmed in response to the chill that slithered down his spine. More than mere warfare lurked in the dark forces gathering in the realm. Something primordial, ancient, and insidiously intelligent was stirring.